Sir, your bride is poisoning your daughter.
A black maid, standing in the middle of a billionaire's wedding, 300 guests staring. Victoria Ashford spun around.
What did you just say? Your tea. Every night. Lily can barely stand anymore. Get this woman out of here. Now! I had it tested, sir. Benzodiazepine. 4 months.
Lily Cole, 18, stood near the door, hollow eyes, shaking hands. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Harrison Cole looked at his bride in her $12,000 gown, then at his maid in her cracked shoes. That night, a maid who earned $6 an hour risked everything she had to save a girl who wasn't even hers. She knew she'd lose her job. She knew no one would believe her. She spoke up anyway. What happened next changed both their lives forever. The alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning. Ivette Brooks reached across the mattress on the floor and silenced it before it woke Danny. He was 6, curled up under a blanket that was too thin for November. His sneakers sat by the door. The left one had a hole near the toe, patched with duct tape and a prayer. Ivette stood up quietly. The apartment was small, 1 room, a kitchen counter with a hot plate, a bathroom where the faucet dripped all night, every night, like a clock counting down to something she couldn't name. She brushed her teeth, pulled her hair back, put on the same uniform she'd ironed the night before, the only one she owned. There was a coffee stain near the collar that wouldn't come out no matter how many times she scrubbed. By 5:15, she was on the bus, 45 minutes to the restaurant. She washed dishes until noon, then another bus, 30 minutes to Mrs. Calloway's house, where she cleaned floors and folded laundry until 5. 2 jobs, 6 days a week, 11 hours a day. And still, every month she had to choose: electric bill or Danny's school supplies, groceries or the bus pass, medicine or rent. Last month, she chose rent. The lights went out for 3 days. Danny did his homework by candlelight and told her it felt like camping. She almost broke that night. "Mama," Danny had said, sitting cross-legged on the floor with his spelling worksheet, "when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a house with a big kitchen." "Yeah?" she smiled, even though her chest ached. "What kind of kitchen?" "The kind where the faucet doesn't drip." She laughed. It was the kind of laugh that hurt. Then the call came. A staffing agency she'd registered with 2 years ago. They had a placement, full-time housekeeper at a private estate. Live out, but the pay was 3 times what she currently made combined. Benefits, stability, a real chance. The catch? The family was Harrison Cole. Everyone knew the name. Real estate billionaire, 46 floors of office towers across Manhattan. His face had been on the cover of Forbes twice. His wife Eleanor had died 2 years ago, breast cancer. Since then, the house had gone through 9 housekeepers in 18 months. None of them lasted. The reason was his daughter, Lily Cole, 18 years old, once a straight-A student, once the girl who played piano at charity galas and gave speeches at her mother's foundation events. Now she barely left her room. After Eleanor died, something in Lily collapsed. She stopped talking to friends, stopped going to school, stopped eating meals at the table. The doctors said grief, the therapist said trauma. The tutors said she was unreachable. Harrison tried everything. New therapists, new routines, new staff. Nothing worked. Lily would sit by her window for hours, staring at the garden Eleanor had planted, and say nothing. The housekeepers before Ivette had all quit for the same reason. Not because Lily was difficult, because she was invisible. She moved through the house like a ghost, present but unreachable, breathing but barely there. And no one knew how to reach a ghost. Ivette took the job. Her first day at the Cole estate felt like stepping into another planet. The driveway alone was longer than the street she lived on. The front door was solid oak. The hallway had fresh flowers that probably cost more than her weekly grocery bill. A house manager named Mr. Whitfield gave her the tour, spoke in clipped sentences, handed her a laminated list of rules. Miss Cole's meals go to her room. Knock twice. Leave the tray. Do not engage. She doesn't come down? She hasn't come down in 4 months. Ivette nodded. But something about that sentence sat wrong in her chest. She found Lily's room on the 2nd floor, knocked twice like she was told, left a tray of soup and toast. 2 hours later, she came back. The tray was untouched. The next morning, she tried again. This time, she left a cup of chamomile tea and a small note. "Hi, Lily. My name is Ivette. I'm new here. I hope you're okay. Why?" The tray came back untouched, but the note was gone. That night, Ivette sat on the bus home, watching the city lights blur past the window. Danny was asleep when she got in. She pulled the thin blanket over his shoulders, sat on the edge of the mattress, and stared at the ceiling. She thought about Lily, alone in that enormous room, 18 and already a ghost. She thought about Eleanor Cole, the woman in the silver frame on the hallway wall. Warm eyes, kind smile, the kind of mother whose absence could break a daughter. And she thought about herself, a mother who couldn't afford heat, a woman who ironed the same uniform every night, a maid who left a note for a girl she'd never met because she knew what it felt like to be invisible. On the nightstand, next to the dripping faucet, sat a photo of Danny at age 3, laughing in a park, missing 2 front teeth. She whispered into the dark, "I'm not giving up on her." She didn't know it yet. But that sentence, spoken to no one in a cold apartment, would change the course of 2 families forever. The note changed things. Not all at once, not in any dramatic way, but slowly, like a crack in a wall letting light through. On the 3rd morning, Ivette left another tray. This time she added a small drawing Danny had made at school, a stick figure family standing in front of a yellow house. The tray came back empty. The drawing stayed. By the end of the 1st week, Lily started opening the door. Not to talk, just to stand there, watching Ivette set the tray down. Her eyes were dark and deep, like someone looking out from the bottom of a well. "You don't have to say anything," Ivette told her. "I'll just be here." Lily nodded. That was enough. By week 2, Lily followed Ivette to the kitchen, sat at the counter while Ivette cooked. Didn't speak, just sat. Sometimes she'd hold a warm mug with both hands and close her eyes, and Ivette would keep stirring whatever was on the stove, pretending not to notice. One afternoon, Lily spoke. "My mom used to make French toast on Sundays." Ivette didn't turn around. "Yeah? With cinnamon?" "Extra cinnamon, and powdered sugar." "I can do that." That Sunday, Ivette made French toast. Extra cinnamon, powdered sugar in a little bowl on the side. Lily ate 3 slices. It was the most she'd eaten in months. Something was shifting. Lily started coming downstairs every morning. She still didn't say much, but she was present, breathing, sitting in the light instead of hiding in the dark. Then Victoria Ashford arrived. She came on a Tuesday. Black Mercedes, red-soled heels clicking across the marble foyer. Perfume that filled the hallway before she did. Harrison introduced her at dinner. "This is Victoria. She's going to be spending more time here." Lily sat across the table, quiet. Victoria smiled at her, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "You must be Lily. Your father talks about you constantly." She tilted her head. "You're so quiet." Lily looked down at her plate. Victoria noticed Ivette standing by the kitchen door. Her smile vanished. "And who is this?" "That's Ivette," Harrison said. "She's been wonderful with Lily." Victoria looked Ivette up and down, slowly, like she was measuring something she intended to throw away. I see. She turned back to Harrison. Darling, I really think Lily needs proper care, not just household help. Ivette said nothing, but she noticed the way Victoria's fingers tightened around her wine glass when Lily reached for the bread, the smallest gesture of normalcy, and Victoria's jaw clenched. Within a week, Victoria had moved in. Within 2 weeks, she had rearranged the kitchen, dismissed the evening cook, and started preparing Lily's nightly tea herself. Herbal blend, she told Harrison, my mother's recipe. Chamomile, lavender, valerian root. It'll help her sleep. Harrison kissed her forehead. You're amazing with her. But Lily wasn't sleeping better. She was disappearing. The shaking came first. Lily's hands trembled so badly she couldn't hold a pen. Then the memory gaps. She'd walk into the kitchen and forget why she came. She'd start a sentence and lose it halfway through, her eyes going blank like someone had unplugged her mid-thought. Something's wrong with me, Miss Ivette. What do you mean, sweetheart? I can't remember things. Yesterday feels like a dream. I don't know what's real anymore. Ivette held Lily's hand. It was cold, thin, the hand of a girl who was fading. She went to Harrison, told him Lily was getting worse, not better. Harrison frowned. The doctor said it's normal, grief cycles. Victoria's been monitoring her closely. With all due respect, sir, she was getting better before. Ivette. His tone was polite but firm. Victoria is going to be my wife. She loves Lily. Let's not create problems where there aren't any. Ivette nodded, went back to the kitchen, washed the dishes in silence. But that night she stayed late, told Mr. Whitfield she wanted to finish the laundry, waited until the house was quiet. At 11:14 she heard footsteps in the kitchen. She pressed herself against the hallway wall and watched. Victoria opened a cabinet. Not the tea cabinet, a different one, behind the cereal boxes. She pulled out a small brown bottle with no label, unscrewed the cap, tapped a white powder into Lily's teacup, stirred it with a silver spoon, put the bottle back, closed the cabinet. Then she walked upstairs, carrying the tea with both hands, humming softly. Ivette stood in the dark hallway, her heart slamming against her ribs, her phone in her pocket. She had just watched a woman poison a cup of tea meant for an 18-year-old girl, and she was the only one who knew. Ivette didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her mattress, staring at the dark ceiling, replaying what she'd seen. The brown bottle, the white powder, the silver spoon, Victoria humming as she carried the tea upstairs like a mother bringing warm milk to a child. Except it wasn't warm milk, and Victoria wasn't a mother. Danny shifted in his sleep beside her, his small hand curled around the corner of the blanket. 6 years old, trusting the world because his mother told him it was safe. Ivette thought about Lily, 18, alone in that room, drinking whatever Victoria handed her because she had no reason not to trust the woman her father loved. By 3 a.m, Ivette had made a decision. She would go back. She would get proof, and she would find a way to make someone listen. The next evening, she arrived at the coal estate 30 minutes early, told Mr. Whitfield she wanted to reorganize the pantry. He waved her through without a second look. She waited. At 10:40, the house went quiet. Harrison was in his study. Lily was in her room. Victoria was in the master bedroom. Ivette could hear the television through the door. At 11:08, the bedroom door opened. Footsteps on the stairs. The click of heels on tile. Ivette pressed herself into the shadow behind the basement door. She held her phone in both hands. The camera was open. Her fingers were shaking so badly she had to press the phone against her chest to steady it. Victoria entered the kitchen. Same cabinet, Same brown bottle. Same routine. This time, Ivette recorded. The video was dark, grainy, shot through a crack in the door, but you could see it. Victoria's hand unscrewing the cap, the white powder falling into the teacup, the stir, the bottle going back behind the cereal boxes. 23 seconds. That's all Ivette got before her phone storage ran out. The screen flashed a warning. She fumbled to dismiss it, and the phone made a sound, a small electronic chirp. Victoria froze. Hello? Ivette held her breath, pressed her back flat against the wall, closed her eyes. Silence. Victoria picked up the teacup and walked upstairs. The kitchen light went off. Ivette stood in the dark for 2 full minutes before she could move. Her legs were shaking. Her mouth was dry. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. But she had the video. The next morning, before her shift, she took a different bus. Not the one to the coal estate. The one heading downtown, to the free clinic on 8th Avenue. She carried a small glass jar in her bag, the remains of Lily's tea from the night before. She'd poured it from the cup before Victoria came to collect the tray, replacing it with plain chamomile so no one would notice. The nurse at the clinic looked at her like she was out of her mind. You want us to test tea? Please, I think someone is putting something in it. Ma'am, we're a walk-in clinic. We don't do... Please, Yvette's voice cracked. It's for a girl. She's 18. She can't remember her own name some mornings, and no one believes me. The nurse stared at her for a long moment. Then she picked up the jar. I'll send it to the lab. Results in 48 hours. 2 days later, Yvette's phone rang during her lunch break. She was sitting in the coal estate kitchen, eating a sandwich she'd brought from home. Ms. Brooks, this is Dr. Lawson's office at the 8th Avenue Clinic. Yes? The sample you brought in tested positive for benzodiazepine, specifically a compound called flunitrazepam. The concentration was significant. Yvette gripped the edge of the counter. Are you saying someone is drugging her? I'm saying that if a person consumed that amount nightly over several months, they would experience memory loss, confusion, motor impairment, and progressive cognitive decline. Ms. Brooks, this is a matter for the police. Yvette thanked her, hung up, sat perfectly still for a long time. She knew what she had to do, but she also knew what it would cost. If she went to the police, Victoria would find out. Victoria would deny everything. Harrison trusted Victoria. The bottle would disappear. And Yvette, a maid with a GED and a criminal background check clearance, would be fired before the investigation even started. If she went to Harrison directly, Victoria would be there. She was always there, monitoring, controlling, standing between Harrison and anything that threatened her plan. There was only one moment when Harrison would be surrounded by witnesses. One moment when Victoria couldn't control the room. One moment when the truth would be impossible to bury. The wedding. It was 12 days away. 12 more nights of Lily drinking that tea. Yvette couldn't wait 12 days. Every evening, she started arriving earlier. She'd intercept the tea tray before Victoria could deliver it. She'd pour out the drugged tea and replace it with clean chamomile. Same cup, same temperature, same time. Victoria didn't notice, or if she did, she didn't say anything. Within 4 days, Lily started improving. Her hands stopped shaking. She remembered what she'd had for breakfast. She came downstairs and sat in the kitchen, not just sitting, but talking, asking questions, laughing at something Danny said when Yvette brought him by after school one afternoon. Miss Yvette? Yes, sweetheart? I feel different, like clearer, like the fog is lifting. Yvette smiled, but behind that smile, her stomach was in knots. Because in 8 days, she was going to stand up in front of 300 people and accuse the bride of attempted murder. She was going to lose her job, possibly get arrested, definitely get humiliated. And Danny, who was counting on her for rent, for food, for those new shoes she'd promised, Danny would pay the price too. She called her sister that night, told her everything. Ivette, are you crazy? You're going to blow up a billionaire's wedding? They'll destroy you. I know. Then why? Ivette looked at Danny, asleep on the mattress, then at her phone, the blurry video of Victoria's hand dropping white powder into a teacup. Because if I don't, that girl is going to lose her mind, and I'm the only person who knows. But what about Danny? What about you? Ivette was quiet for a long time. If I teach my son that staying quiet is easier than doing the right thing, then what kind of mother am I? Her sister didn't answer. There was nothing to say. 8 days. Ivette pressed her uniform, polished her cracked shoes, and started counting down. The wedding day arrived like a verdict. 300 guests filled the garden of the Cole estate. White roses lined every aisle. A string quartet played beneath a canopy of silk. Champagne towers caught the afternoon sun. Everything was perfect. Everything except the maid standing near the service entrance, clutching a phone and a lab report in a manila envelope. Ivette had rehearsed this moment 100 times in her head. But now that she was here, watching the guests laugh, watching Harrison adjust his tie at the altar, watching Victoria glide down the aisle in a gown that cost more than Yvette's annual salary, her courage felt paper thin. Then she saw Lily, sitting in the front row, pale, thin, her hands folded in her lap to hide the trembling. She was wearing a blue dress that hung off her shoulders like it belonged to someone bigger, someone she used to be. Lily looked up. Their eyes met. And Ivette walked into the aisle. "Sir, your bride is poisoning your daughter." The words came out louder than she expected, louder than she'd practiced. They hit the silence like a brick through glass. Victoria spun around. Her face shifted from shock to fury in less than a second. "Are you insane? Someone get this woman away from me." 2 security guards moved toward Ivette. A guest in the third row laughed nervously. Another pulled out a phone and started recording. "She's lying," Victoria's voice climbed. "She's a jealous, pathetic maid who can't stand seeing—" "I have proof." Ivette held up the envelope. Her hand was shaking, but her voice was not. Lab results, a video, 4 months of evidence. Harrison stood at the altar. He hadn't moved. His eyes were locked on Ivette, on her cracked shoes, her wrinkled uniform, the tears running down her face. "Let her speak," he said. "Harrison!" Victoria grabbed his arm. "You can't seriously—" "I said let her speak." The garden went silent. Ivette opened the envelope, handed the lab report to Harrison. He read it. His jaw tightened. He read it again. "Benzodiazepine," Ivette said quietly. "Flunitrazepam. In Lily's tea. Every night." Harrison turned to his personal physician, Dr. Whitmore, seated in the second row. "Test Lily, right now." Victoria's face went white. "This is ridiculous. This is a wedding, not a right now." Dr. Whitmore led Lily inside. The guests murmured. Victoria paced. Her hands were clenching and unclenching at her sides. 14 minutes. That's how long it took. Dr. Whitmore came back through the glass doors. He didn't need to say much. Flunitrazepam, elevated levels, consistent with repeated administration over several months. The murmuring stopped. 300 people stared at Victoria Ashford. She ran, made it 6 steps before 2 security guards caught her arms. She screamed, kicked, called Ivette every name she could think of. Harrison didn't watch. He was already inside, kneeling in front of Lily, holding her face in both hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it." Lily was crying, but for the first time in months, her eyes were clear. "She tried to tell you, Dad." Her voice was small but steady. "Miss Ivette tried to tell you." Outside, the police arrived. Victoria was escorted to a cruiser. The string quartet packed up. The champagne went flat. And Ivette Brooks stood by the service entrance, exactly where she'd started, watching it all unfold. She picked up her bag, straightened her uniform, and turned toward the driveway. Harrison caught her at the gate. "Where are you going?" She didn't turn around. "My job here is done, sir." "Ivette." She stopped. "Thank you." His voice broke on the second word. "Thank you for saving my daughter." She nodded, once, then kept walking. Her shoes clicked against the pavement, cracked leather on cold stone. She didn't look back. She had a bus to catch. Danny was waiting. The video hit the internet before Ivette got home. Someone at the wedding had recorded the whole thing. The accusation, Victoria's screaming, Harrison's face when he read the lab report, the police dragging Victoria across the rose-lined aisle in handcuffs. By midnight, it had 2 million views. By morning, it was everywhere. Black Maid exposes billionaire's bride at the altar. She risked everything to save a stranger's daughter. Maid versus millionaire bride. Watch what happens next. Ivette didn't watch the videos. She didn't read the comments. She turned her phone off and sat with Danny at the kitchen counter, helping him with his spelling homework, while the faucet dripped in the background. "Mama, why are people calling your phone so much?" "Don't worry about it, baby." 3 days passed. The story kept growing. Investigators uncovered Victoria Ashford's real history. Her name wasn't even Victoria Ashford. It was Catherine Mercer. 3 prior marriages, all to wealthy widowers, all ending in mysterious circumstances. One ex-husband hospitalized for chronic poisoning. Another's estate drained within 6 months of the wedding. She wasn't a socialite. She was a predator. And Lily Cole was her latest target. The plan was clinical. Poison Lily slowly with flunitrazepam, destroy her memory, erode her cognitive function until she could be declared mentally incompetent. Once Lily lost legal capacity, Victoria, as Harrison's wife, would petition for guardianship of the estate's trust, Lily's inheritance, $340 million. All she needed was time, and a household that didn't ask questions. She almost got away with it. The only thing standing between Victoria and $340 million was a maid who earned $6 an hour and couldn't afford new shoes. On the 4th morning, Yvette's phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the number had a Manhattan area code. "Ms. Brooks, this is Gerald Pennington. I'm Mr. Cole's personal attorney." Yvette's stomach dropped. "Mr. Cole would like to see you, tomorrow, 10 a.m., his office." "Am I in trouble?" A pause. "No, Miss Brooks, you're not in trouble." She hung up, stared at the phone, stared at the dripping faucet, stared at Danny's shoes by the door, still taped, still cracked, still too small. She ironed her uniform that night, the same one, the only one. Scrubbed the coffee stain near the collar one more time. It still didn't come out. She didn't know what was waiting for her in that office, but she knew one thing. Whatever it was, she'd walk in the same way she'd walked into that wedding, with nothing but the truth and a pair of broken shoes. The elevator opened on the 42nd floor. Ivette had never been above the 5th floor of anything. Her apartment building had 3. The restaurant where she washed dishes had 1. The tallest thing in her daily life was the oak tree outside Danny's school. Now she was standing in a hallway made of glass and steel, with a view of Manhattan that stretched all the way to the Hudson River. The floor was so polished she could see her own reflection, cracked shoes, wrinkled uniform, manila envelope pressed against her chest. A receptionist led her down a corridor lined with framed magazine covers. Harrison Cole on the cover of Forbes. Harrison Cole shaking hands with a senator. Harrison Cole cutting a ribbon at a children's hospital. But the receptionist didn't take her to the boardroom. She didn't take her to a corner office. She took her to a small room at the end of the hall. A reading room. Bookshelves on 3 walls. A leather armchair by the window. And in the center, sitting cross-legged on a rug, was Lily Cole. She looked different. Not completely. Her frame was still thin, her cheeks were still hollow. But her eyes were clear, focused, present, like someone who had just woken up from a very long, very bad dream. When she saw Ivette, she stood up, walked across the room, and wrapped her arms around her. "Thank you," Lily whispered. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Ivette held her, didn't say a word, just held her. Harrison was sitting in the armchair. He hadn't announced himself. He'd been watching the whole time, the way Lily moved toward Ivette without hesitation, the way her body relaxed in Yvette's arms, the way she exhaled like she was finally safe. He stood. "Ivette, I need to tell you something." She let go of Lily and turned to face him. Her instinct was to straighten her posture, to fold her hands in front of her, to look like a maid standing before her employer. But Harrison didn't look like an employer right now. He looked like a father who had almost lost everything. "Sit down," he said. "Please." She sat. Lily sat beside her. Close. Like a daughter sitting next to someone she trusted. Harrison reached behind the armchair and picked up a framed photograph. Silver frame, black and white. A woman in a simple dress, standing in a kitchen, smiling at the camera. She was young, beautiful, and she was black. "This is Eleanor," Harrison said. "My wife." Ivette looked at the photo. She'd seen Eleanor's picture at the estate, always from a distance, always in passing, but she'd never looked closely. She'd never noticed. "Eleanor grew up in Bed-Stuy," Harrison continued. "Her mother cleaned offices at night. Her father drove a bus. She started working at 14, babysitting, washing cars, cleaning houses." He paused. His thumb traced the edge of the frame. "She was 22 when I met her. She was working as a housekeeper at a hotel in Midtown. I was staying there during a deal. My room was a mess. She came in to clean it, and I asked her to have coffee with me." He smiled. The kind of smile that belonged to a memory he visited often. "Everyone told me I was crazy. My partners, my family, my accountant, a billionaire marrying a housekeeper. They said she was after my money. They said it would ruin my reputation." He set the photograph down on the table between them. "She was the best thing that ever happened to me. She built the foundation. She raised Lily. She made this family worth having." The room was quiet. Lily was holding Yvette's hand. "When Victoria walked into our lives," Harrison said, his voice tightening, "she said all the right things. She wore the right clothes. She knew the right people. She looked like the kind of woman the world expected me to marry." He looked at Yvette. "But when she looked at you, when she called you filthy, when she told me you were just household help, I should have seen it. Because Eleanor heard those same words, every day, from people just like Victoria." Yvette's eyes were burning. She blinked hard. "I didn't see it because I was tired," Harrison said. "Tired of being alone. Tired of raising Lily without her mother. I wanted someone to fill that space, and I let the wrong person walk in." He leaned forward. "But you saw it. You saw what I was too blind to see. And you did what Eleanor would have done. You protected Lily. Not because anyone asked you to, not because you'd be rewarded, but because it was right. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small card. He placed it on the table next to Eleanor's photograph. The reason I trusted you that day, the moment you spoke up at the wedding, wasn't because of the evidence. I trusted you because I recognized you. Ivette looked at him. You're the same kind of person Eleanor was, and I will never make the mistake of ignoring that again. Lily squeezed Yvette's hand. She's the only one who didn't give up on me, Dad. Her voice was quiet but clear. Everyone else followed the rules. Knock twice, leave the tray, don't engage. She was the only one who stayed. Harrison nodded. His eyes were red. I know, he said. I know. The reading room was silent. Sunlight came through the window and fell across Eleanor's photograph, across her simple dress, her kitchen, her smile. And for the first time in a long time, the room felt like it had enough people in it. Harrison stood and walked to the window. The Manhattan skyline stretched out behind him, steel and glass, 46 floors of everything he'd built. He looked at it the way a man looks at something he almost lost. I've spent the last 3 days with my lawyers, he said. Not about Victoria, about you. Yvette stiffened. Sir, I don't want... Just listen, please. He turned around. In his hand was a folder, dark blue, thick. The kind that held documents people signed with witnesses present. First, he said, Danny. Yvette's breath caught. Full scholarship. Whitmore Academy. It's the best private school on the East Coast. Kindergarten through 12th grade. Tuition, books, uniforms, meals, everything covered. Yvette opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Second, housing. There's a 2-bedroom apartment in the building my foundation owns on West 73rd, 6 blocks from the school. It's yours. No rent. For as long as you need it. Lily was watching Yvette's face, watching the way her hands gripped the arms of the chair, watching the way her jaw trembled. Third, Harrison placed the folder on the table. I'm restructuring the household staff at the estate. I'm creating a new position, Director of Household Operations. Full salary, full benefits, health insurance for you and Danny, retirement plan, paid leave. He paused. The position is yours if you want it. Yvette stared at the folder. She didn't touch it. Her fingers were shaking. And fourth, Harrison reached into the folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Eleanor started a foundation before she died, the Eleanor Cole Foundation. It supports underprivileged women in domestic work, legal aid, job training, emergency housing. He slid the paper across the table. I'm giving you a 2% equity stake in the foundation's endowment. That's not charity, Yvette. That's recognition. You are exactly the kind of person Eleanor built this for. The room was quiet. Sunlight moved slowly across the rug. Yvette looked at the paper, then at Lily, then at Harrison. No, she said. Harrison blinked. No? I didn't do this for money, sir. I didn't do it for a scholarship, or an apartment, or a job title. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. I did it because Lily was disappearing, right in front of everyone, and nobody was paying attention. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. Where I come from, you don't help somebody because there's a reward at the end. You help because it's the right thing. Because if it was your kid, you'd want someone to speak up. Harrison didn't respond right away. He looked at the photograph of Eleanor on the table, then back at Yvette. That, he said quietly, is exactly what Eleanor said when I proposed to her. What do you mean? I offered her everything. A house, a car, a new life. She turned me down 3 times. Told me she didn't fall in love with me for my money. Told me if I wanted to be with her, I had to understand. She'd keep cleaning if she had to, because her dignity didn't come from what she owned. He smiled. You remind me of her in ways that hurt, Ivette. In the best possible way. Lily leaned forward. Miss Ivette, please, take it. Not for the money. For Danny. Ivette looked at Lily. 18. Clear-eyed for the first time in months. Sitting up straight. Speaking up. And for the women like you, Lily continued. The ones who work 2 jobs and still can't pay rent. The ones who speak up and get punished for it. If you're part of the foundation, you can actually change things. Ivette closed her eyes, pressed her lips together. She thought about Danny, doing homework by candlelight, shoes held together with tape, asking her if they were going to be okay. She thought about the bus at 5:15 in the morning, the restaurant sink, the dripping faucet, the electric bill she couldn't pay. She thought about every night she sat on that mattress and promised herself tomorrow would be different. Okay, she said, but I have a condition. Harrison raised an eyebrow. The foundation. I want it to expand, not just legal aid and job training. I want a program specifically for domestic workers who've been abused, threatened, or silenced by their employers. Women who saw something wrong and were too scared to speak up because they'd lose their income. Harrison nodded slowly. I want them to have lawyers. I want them to have protection. I want them to know that if they tell the truth, someone will catch them when they fall. Done, Harrison said. Name the program. Ivette shook her head. I don't want my name on it. Lily spoke up. Then we'll call it the Second Voice Program, because sometimes the person who speaks up isn't the one with power. It's the one who has nothing to lose, except everything. Ivette looked at Lily. This girl, this 18-year-old girl who 4 months ago couldn't hold a glass, who sat in a dark room and forgot her own name. Now she was naming programs. Now she was building something. The Second Voice Program, Ivette repeated. I love it, Harrison said. 2 weeks later, Danny Brooks walked through the gates of Whitmore Academy. He was wearing a new uniform, new shoes, a backpack that didn't have a broken zipper. He turned around at the entrance and looked at his mother. Mom, is this real? Ivette knelt down, straightened his collar, looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had watched her iron that uniform every night, that had done homework by candlelight, that had asked if they were going to be okay. It's real, baby, all of it. Danny smiled, turned, walked through the gates. Ivette watched him until he disappeared inside. Then she stood there a little longer, in her new shoes, on a sidewalk she never imagined she'd stand on. The faucet didn't drip anymore. 6 months changed everything. The Second Voice program launched on the Tuesday morning in January. The office was small, 2 rooms above a laundromat on 8th Avenue, 3 blocks from the clinic where Ivette had first tested Lily's tea. The walls were freshly painted. The chairs were secondhand. The sign on the door read, "You spoke up. We'll stand with you." Ivette picked the location herself. This is where it started, she told Harrison. This is where it should live. Within the first week, 14 domestic workers walked through that door. By the end of the first month, the number was 63. Women who had been threatened by employers. Women who had witnessed abuse and stayed silent because they couldn't afford to lose their jobs. Women who had been told, by lawyers, by agencies, by the families they served, that their word meant nothing. Now, their word had lawyers behind it. The foundation hired a legal team, 3 attorneys, a case manager, a hotline that ran 24 hours. Every caller was assigned an advocate within 48 hours. Every case was taken seriously, regardless of income, immigration status, or employment history. By month 3, the program had assisted over 200 women across New York. 11 cases resulted in criminal charges. 4 led to landmark labor settlements. One case, involving a nanny who had been locked in a basement for 3 days by her employer, made national news. The headline read, "The Second Voice Program, How One Maid Built a Movement." Ivette hated the headline. She told the reporter the same thing she told everyone. "I was just a maid who wouldn't look away. That's all." But the world was looking now. Lily Cole stood on a stage in April, a TED Talk, 1,500 people in the audience, cameras everywhere. 6 months ago, she couldn't hold a glass, couldn't finish a sentence, couldn't remember her own breakfast. Now she was speaking to 1,500 strangers about what it felt like to lose your mind, and what it felt like to get it back. "I was disappearing," she said. "Every day, a little more of me was gone. I could feel it, like someone was erasing me from the inside out." She paused, looked into the audience. And the only person who noticed was the woman everyone told me not to trust. The maid, the one they said didn't matter. Her voice broke. She steadied herself. "Her name is Ivette Brooks, and she saved my life by doing the one thing no one else in that house was willing to do." She paid attention. The audience stood, 1,500 people on their feet, applauding a girl who had been silenced, and a maid who had refused to be. The video went viral, 40 million views in 2 weeks. The hashtag Justice for Lily trended in 12 countries. The hashtag Second Voice trended in 20. Harrison Cole restructured his entire company's labor policy that same month. Every domestic worker employed by Cole Properties received full health insurance, a minimum wage 30% above the state requirement, and access to the Second Voice legal hotline. 14 other corporations followed within 90 days. Danny Brooks finished his first semester at Whitmore Academy ranked 3rd in his class. His teacher sent a note home. "Danny is kind, focused, and remarkably empathetic for his age. He told me his mother taught him that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing." Ivette read that note sitting in her new apartment. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a stove that worked, a bathroom where nothing dripped. She pinned the note to the refrigerator, next to Danny's stick figure drawing, the one Lily had kept from that first week. A yellow house, a family. In June, Victoria Ashford, real name Catherine Mercer, was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Charges: attempted aggravated assault, fraud, administering a controlled substance without consent, and conspiracy to commit financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. She showed no remorse at sentencing. She didn't look at the camera. She didn't look at anyone. But the courtroom was full. 200 domestic workers sat in the gallery wearing matching pins, small silver microphones, the symbol of the Second Voice program. They didn't cheer, they didn't clap. They just sat there, present, visible, impossible to ignore. Exactly the way Ivette had taught them to be. 1 year later, Ivette stood in front of a room full of women she'd never met. The Second Voice program had moved out of the 2 rooms above the laundromat. It now occupied an entire floor of a building on West 45th Street. New desks, new phones, a waiting room with chairs that weren't secondhand anymore. But the sign on the door was the same. "You spoke up, we'll stand with you." 32 women sat in folding chairs. New recruits, housekeepers, nannies, elder care workers, live-in aides. Some had been threatened. Some had been assaulted. All of them had been told, at some point, that their voice didn't matter. Ivette looked at them the way she wished someone had looked at her, like they were worth listening to. "I'm not going to stand here and tell you I'm brave," she said, "because I wasn't. I was terrified. Every single day I wanted to quit. I wanted to keep my mouth shut, keep my job, keep my son fed. That would have been easier." She paused. But there was a girl in that house who was losing herself, and I couldn't pretend I didn't see it. Not because I'm special, because I'm a mother. And if it were my child, I'd want someone, anyone, to say something. The room was quiet. "So that's why you're here. Not because you're heroes. Because you're the someone. You're the anyone. And from now on, you don't stand alone." After the session, she walked to the elevator. Her shoes clicked against the polished floor. New shoes, black leather. The same brand as the cracked pair she'd worn to the wedding, except these ones didn't need tape. She smiled at that, a small, private smile. The elevator opened. Danny was standing inside, backpack slung over one shoulder, grinning. "Mom, I got an A on my essay." "Which one?" "The one about you." She pulled him close, kissed the top of his head. He was getting taller, almost up to her chin now. The lobby doors opened and Lily walked in, confident, steady. Her hair was pulled back. She was carrying a rolled-up canvas under her arm. "This is for you," Lily said, handing it to Yvette. Yvette unrolled it. A painting. 2 figures sitting at a kitchen counter, one tall, one thin, a plate of French toast between them, extra cinnamon, powdered sugar on the side. Beneath the painting, in Lily's handwriting, "For the woman who stayed when everyone else left." Yvette held it against her chest. Behind Lily, standing in the doorway, Harrison Cole watched. He held a silver frame in his hands. Eleanor's photograph. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The afternoon light came through the lobby windows and fell across all of them. A billionaire, his daughter, a maid, and a 6-year-old boy, standing in a building that existed because one woman chose a stranger's child over her own safety. Outside, the city moved on. Taxis honked, people rushed past. But inside that lobby, for just a moment, the world was exactly the way it should be. Ivette Brooks didn't have a law degree. She didn't have connections. She didn't have money. She had cracked shoes, a phone with no storage, and a son who did homework by candlelight. But she had something Victoria Ashford never counted on: the courage to speak when no one wanted to listen. So here's my question. If you were Yvette, standing in that wedding, holding that envelope, knowing every person in that room would call you a liar, would you still speak up? Would you risk everything for a girl who wasn't yours? Tell me in the comments. And if this story reminded you that one voice can still change everything, share it. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because sometimes the most powerful person in the room isn't the billionaire. It's the maid.
Catherine, 12 years in federal prison. Lily, standing on a test stage. And Yvette, now running a program that's protected over 200 women. All because the maid who made $6 an hour refused to look away. But the moment that stays with me is not the wedding. It's the night before. Yvette on the mattress, Danny asleep next to her, knowing if she spoke up she'd lose everything. The job, the roof, the food on the table. And she did it anyway. Not because she wasn't scared, because she decided her son watching her stay silent was worse than losing it all. That's not just courage. That's mother rewriting what her child learns about the world with the real consequences. And be honest with yourself for a second. We've all been in that room. Maybe not a billionaire's wedding, but somewhere something was wrong and everybody just keeps smiling. And that voice in your head whispered, don't, nobody's gonna believe you anyway. So, here's my question. If you were Ivette, holding that envelope, 300 people staring, would you still speak? Drop your answer below. I'm reading everyone. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe, hit the bell. Next week's story will flip everything you expect. Sometimes the most powerful voice in the room belongs to the person nobody expected to speak.